on, and they said, Mr. and Mrs. Stapley, this is so-and-so from such-and-such television station in San Francisco. We would like to talk to you about your son Robin and the murders in Calaveras County. Our telephone number is blah, 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 blah. Please call us.
But today we have pictures that will probably leave many people with an...
We were watching the news one night, and all of a sudden, on the TV, there's my daughter sitting in a chair in shackles and him cutting her clothes off. And she was begging for the baby.
These are some of the bone fragments that have been found, pieces of human beings. And investigators say there are countless fragments just like
they just kept talking. They'd show their hands on the TV at night, and they would have marble-sized chunks of bone. And you didn't know if it was Paul, you know. But in nobody's wildest imagination did we expect it to be this bad and this horrible.
The shocking discoveries at Wilseyville had left the police with many questions, and the victims' relatives reeling, desperate for justice. But Lake was dead, and Cricket refused to give any information without immunity. That left Charles Ng, and he had vanished. An international manhunt was underway. Then on July 6, 1985, Ng attempted to shoplift from the Hudson Bay department store, Calgary, in Canada. He was arrested. Within hours, FBI agents were in Calgary to verify that this man was Charles Ng and to take him back to California. But the Canadian government refused to extradite Ng to a state where he could face the death penalty. It took 6 years of campaigning by Sharon Solito and other victims' relatives, as well as political wrangling between governments, before Ng faced an extradition hearing.
He doesn't have any rights. He made a decision, and it was the wrong one, and he deserves to suffer the consequences.
Once the extradition was granted, Ng was on a plane back to California within the hour.
And I knew that they had had this Ng task force all the time, this whole 6 years that he'd been in Canada. They were just going to kind of have to pick him up and dust him off, and the process would begin. And that's not what happened.
The next 7 years saw a succession of delays due to mismanagement of the case and Ng turning jailhouse lawyer.
Ng isn't even an American citizen, and he's managed to use our legal system better and longer than any criminal in the history of the United States that was born here. He changed attorneys like he changed his socks.
5 teams of defense lawyers, 7 judges, and 3 trial start dates came and went. Finally, in 1994, Ng was given the lawyer that would defend him at trial.
I was appointed Charles Ng's lawyer in November of 1994. Immediately, I went up to Calaveras County just to get a sense of how large the file was, and I was, of course, dumbstruck. 6 tons of paper and machinery and bookshelves and all that, probably 4 tons of paper. That's what we estimated.
Ng had been charged with the murder of 12 of the 25 Wilseyville victims. Kelly needed 3 years to prepare this huge case.
Then we realized that we had waited 14 years for a trial that was a farce. They had spent $20 million putting this together. For what? It was unbelievable.
It is ludicrous for this defendant to come to court and ask for any relief. What we're looking at now is a motion for new trial.
Ng did everything he could to disrupt the trial. He presented dozens of motions to the court, including complaints of travel sickness and bad food.
Looking at a motion, I'm sorry.
Mr. Ng appears to be sort of dozing off here.
Mr. Ng, are you able to listen to what's going on?
No, I'm not able to concentrate, sir.
Why?
I'm tired.
How much sleep did you get last night?
I stay up all night.
Why?
Packing and finishing. finishing up these motions that I filed today.
You're working on the motions that you filed today.
Yes.
Not much to pack.
The last straw came when Ing telephoned a juror in an effort to cause a mistrial.
After I found out that it was in fact Charles Ing that had called me and had been able to reach out from his cell and get into my house. And it's scary. He doesn't belong here. I couldn't just leave it at court anymore. It was at home with me now. And I resent that.
Leonard Lake clearly had a great deal of influence over Mr. Ing.
The victims' relatives endured 8 months of horrific evidence and a defense case that presented Lake as the manipulator and Ing merely an accomplice.
The evidence fails to show that he was an actual killer.
The one person who knew the truth was not questioned in the trial by either side, for fear she would damage their case. But despite damning evidence, Cricket Balash had been given immunity on 19 counts of murder.
She knew what was going on. I think she procured, I think she lured people up there for them, and I think she was a willing participant also.
Let's see, we talked about underage performers, and
there's one particular conversation where Cricket is actually seen looking at photographic albums of young girls.
But I've seen some awfully cute looking little 14, 16-year-olds that I envy, and I wouldn't mind watching them do something interesting.
And they mention making some of the girls at the school disappear. At that time, Cricket was a teacher's aide at a school. I think it was a high school. They're actually talking about making people disappear. But the immunity agreement stood. I mean, they couldn't prove that she lied, and so there it was, and so off she went.
So the prosecution could get Cricket Balash to court, but they could not risk questioning her on the stand. But they did have 2 pieces of evidence that were damning proof of Ing's true role in the Wilseyville murders.
Now, unfortunately, Ing did a number of drawings, some of which specifically were connected to the victims in the trial. As pieces of evidence, they were not good from my perspective.
What you have here is 2 individuals, and it appears that what they are doing is they are dropping this person into a fire. We just don't want to believe that these 2 men were capable of taking living human beings and placing them into a fire, because we know from the 4th picture that they were awake because they were able to speak when they were placed in the fire.
Few of the victims' bodies were ever found, just the crushed bones from the many burn sites scattered around the property. However, the evidence that finally proved Ing's guilt to the jury was the M-Ladies tape. Kathy Allen and then Brenda O'Connor were kept prisoner in the bunker cell. The videotape shows them brought to this room in Lake's house. Their clothes were cut off at knife point. They were threatened with rape, beatings, and the death of their babies and themselves.
This tape cannot be taken lock, stock, and barrel the way it is. This is like 3 scenes of the, first scene is Leonard Lake with Kathy Allen with me. The second scene was a massage scene. Third scene was Leonard Lake talking to Kathy Allen when I'm not in the property at all. The 4th scene is Brenda O'Connor scene with Leonard Lake, me. That's basically the totality of the tape.
The tape that my daughter was on, it was a tape of torture, mental torture, and him cutting her clothes off and everything. Had a truly big effect on the jury. The one juror still has nightmares, still hears my daughter's voice.
And Brenda just wanting to know where her baby was, and sleep like a rock, and laughing at her and making fun of her. And then when they had her stripped down to take her to the shower, she got faint, and Leonard Lake is over there fondling her and pretending to be nice to her, and, oh, here, let me help you, and it just made me sick. It still makes me sick.
Because the tape only lasts, the segment that I was involved in only lasts at the most 20 minutes. And the prosecution tried to tell the jury that this 20 minutes, this is the real Charles Ng.
But there's no doubt that Charles Ng enjoyed what he did. And in his drawings, the cartoons that he produced, he does state in one of them, no kill, no thrill, which would suggest that for him, the enjoyment, what he got out of the behavior that is exhibited on ladies was the thrill of control.
The trial they had waited 14 years for lasted 8 months. And in February 1999, the jury gave their verdicts on 12 counts of murder. For Sharon Solito, those verdicts proved a devastating end to her long fight for justice.
Before they ever even started, my mother was sitting there with her hands in her lap, turned up, and the tears were just running down her face and filling up her hands. And the court clerk got up and read the verdicts.
We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Charles Cheetat Ng, guilty.
They go, count one, and they go, guilty, 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 and they'd say count two and go, guilty.
Juror number 7.
And it was 11 murder ones.
Juror number 8, is this your
And a
verdict?
mistrial in Paul.
Juror number 9, is this your verdict?
And I couldn't take it. It was like 124 damn guilties, and they couldn't do one stinking guilty for Paul.
My name is David Douglas Bond. I'm the brother of Lonnie Wayne Bond and the uncle of Lonnie Wayne Jr. and brother-in-law of Brenda O'Connor. In '85, Mr. Ng took their lives by murder, rape, and pillage.
That part of the punishment is listening to what the havoc that you've caused, the pain that you've caused to the families, and that they're your victims too.
The baby was beautiful, and he loved his grandpa. He followed him all over. May God forgive me, but I want Charles Ng dead.
Everybody in that courtroom, every family member was a victim of Charles Ng and Leonard Lake.
I don't have any fancy speech to give you. I just wanted to come up here and stand before you and tell you that my sister was loved and is missed very, very much.
There are times, many times, Dwight and I cling to and hold each other and silently scream for the unendurable loss of our youngest son. We sometimes cry for hours and hours with longing to see our dear son Scott again. No one should ever have to lose a child, especially in such a sadistic manner. Human beings deserve dignity in death.
Deborah Harvey and Sean Dubbs, Kathleen Allen, Brenda O'Connor, Lonnie and Lonnie Bond Jr., Scott Stapley, Cliff Parento, Jeff Gerald, Michael Carroll, and my brother deserved to live, and Charles Ng, you deserve to die.
Charles Cheetat Ng, it is the judgment and sentence of this court that you shall be punished by death. Said penalty to be inflicted within the walls of the California State Prison at San Quentin, California.
I don't want to be in this car road. You fucking give me a show trial, you fucking judge.
You've read all the cases, Mr. Ng. No, that's not necessary. Mr. Ng, please.
Charles Ng is now on death row in San Quentin prison. His execution is unlikely to happen within the next 15 years. Leonard Lake is dead and has never been punished. And Cricket Balash is enjoying a new life in San Francisco. Most of the victims' families have no remains to bury, and so have never been able to lay their loved ones to rest. Remarkably, some can draw hope from this terrible ordeal.
There have been good things happen to us all the way through. You know, people are good. There's a saying that no matter how anything evil happens, good will come of it. And this has been just about as evil